At this very moment, the front line is erupting as Ukrainian forces deliver a devastating blow to the Russian offensive. In just 4 days, thousands of enemy losses have accumulated, turning what was supposed to be a push into a bloody failure for the occupiers. Moscow's largest attempt to break through has collapsed, leaving the Kremlin's plan in ruins. Ukrainian troops have taken control of the situation, pushing back and striking with initiative, while enemy equipment is being destroyed and drones continue to hunt down targets. The nature of the war is changing before our eyes. Putin's control is slipping at breaking point. The propaganda machine is starting to stutter as voices go silent one after another, while criticism of Moscow surges with every passing second. More and more Russians are now openly holding Putin responsible for everything falling apart. Has reality finally caught up? And if so, what happens next? Let's talk about it. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. Maria Farafonova here with the latest updates. This isn't just a defeat, it's a collapse that will echo for years. Ukraine's armed forces didn't just stop Russia's offensive, they incinerated it. What was supposed to look like a confident push turned into a brutal grinder where thousands of occupiers were chewed up and discarded. The much-hyped blitzkrieg has ended up as a spectacular embarrassment with over 6,000 losses in just 4 days, a grim price for illusions of victory.
Ukraine's defense forces are breaking the plans of the Russian aggressor. Over 4 days this week, from March 17th to March 20th, 2026, the intensity of enemy offensive actions increased. The enemy attempted to break through our defensive line simultaneously in several strategic directions. Fierce battles were ongoing across the entire line of contact. In total, over these 4 days, the enemy carried out 619 assault actions.
The Kremlin poured tens of thousands into this gamble and got a disaster in return. Wave after wave of mid-assaults slammed into Ukrainian defenses and simply dissolved. Equipment burns, plans collapse, and reality hits harder than any propaganda ever could.
Over 4 days of intense assault operations, the enemy lost more than 6,000 servicemen killed and wounded. At the same time, over the week, total enemy losses amounted to about 8,710 killed and severely wounded. The defense forces also destroyed a significant amount of enemy military equipment and weapons.
The fiercest pressure fell on Pokrovsk and Alexandrivka, where attacks kept coming like clockwork, only to shatter again and again against Ukraine's defenses. If this was a plan, it looked more like repetition without results.
In particular, in the Pokrovsk direction, the enemy attacked our positions 163 times, and in the Alexandrivka direction, 96 times. The situation also remained extremely tense in the Kostiantynivka direction, where Russian troops carried out 84 assault actions, as well as in the Okeratyne, Lyman, and Kupiansk directions, where more than 150 combat engagements took place in total. Despite colossal pressure and significant reserves, the Russian command failed to accomplish its objectives.
And it gets worse for Moscow. Ukraine didn't just hold, it flipped the script. Near Liman, Russian forces went all in, throwing everything they had into what was meant to be a decisive breakthrough. Instead, it turned into a textbook failure.
More than 500 infantry troops, 28 armored vehicles, and over 100 units of motorized equipment were involved in the assault. Russian invaders carried out the largest breakthrough attempt in the Lyman-Borova direction since the beginning of hostilities in this sector. However, the attacks were repelled.
Right now, the glossy myth of Russia's great army is cracking live on air. The parade posters are peeling off, and underneath, not glory, but grim frontline reality. Those who once worshipped the Kremlin's strongmen are now suddenly discovering a voice and using it to admit the obvious. Moscow's outdated playbook is getting shredded by Kyiv's modern war. Turns out, slogans don't stop drones.
The current fighting resembles the slaughter of cattle in Siberia, only with people instead of cows. It increasingly seems that with the current government incapable of adapting to the realities of war, Russia will never achieve victory.
Meanwhile, the loyal Z-War correspondents, yesterday's choir of triumph, are now a chorus of complaints. Year 4 of the war and even basic personal protection is still a luxury. Short guns, practically premium content. All of this unfolds against the backdrop of precise Ukrainian strikes and loss figures that read like a nightmare spreadsheet. And Magyar? He doesn't even need to speak. His videos do the job hunting occupiers straight through their screens.
Just think about it. The list of over 200,000 dead. Russian servicemen is currently known, and Magyar's channel alone publishes videos several times a week of Russian soldiers killed by FPV drones. Each video shows between 50 and 100 dead, and his channel publishes several such videos a week.
Reality, that inconvenient, stubborn thing, is no longer hiding behind layers of propaganda. It's flooding the system. One by one, the Kremlin's loudspeakers are short-circuiting.
While the rebellious Z-blogger Ilya Remezlo is recovering in a psychiatric hospital, another Russian propagandist, Anastasia Kashevarova, has picked up the baton.
And the complaints keep piling up like unpaid bills, censorship, shutdowns, reckless destruction of business, barbaric waste, social injustice, legal nihilism. The gap between the people and the authorities is no longer a crag, it's a canyon. And every day it deepens, turning the system into a closed loop of fear, chaos, and fading control. The spring offensive of the occupying army is being shattered against the defense of the armed forces of Ukraine, bringing only colossal losses to the Kremlin. Moreover, Ukrainian defenders have managed to transition into a much more successful spring offensive. Details in our report.
There are no more reserves, so Russia is planning to send all mobilized personnel from Crimea to the front. This is reported by analysts from the Institute for the Study of War. The date of the large deployment seems to have been deliberately chosen for April Fool's Day, the 1st of April. At the same time, some units from the peninsula have already been sent to the mainland, according to the Ukrainian command. First and foremost, this is to fill the gaps caused by Russia's record losses since last week.
They really have brought in reserves, including from temporarily occupied Crimea and other directions, to the Zaporizhzhia and Pokrovsk sectors. These include naval infantry and airborne units in order to carry out their assigned tasks. Accordingly, reinforcements are coming in from the territory of the Russian Federation. But here the question is about quality.
President Zelensky also spoke about Russia launching its spring-summer offensive. Commanders of various Ukrainian armed forces units are reporting an increase in the number of assaults. However, the only result this brings is unprecedented losses among the occupiers, sometimes more than 1,500 people per day.
In just a few days, the Russians have indeed lost, by conservative estimates, more than 8,000 of their personnel. We see that these numbers fluctuate from 970, 940, up to 1,700, 1,600. And for every square kilometer of advance by Russian troops today, the Russian army pays with the lives of more than 3 companies.
It is precisely to cover these losses that the redeployment of Crimean units to the front is being planned. As analysts note, the new personnel are supposed to replace the wounded and reinforce the 810th Separate Marine Brigade of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, whose units are currently operating in the Kursk region and as part of the Operational Tactical Group Crimea. By the way, these same forces are now trying to advance in the Sumy region, but they do not stand out from the overall background of the Russian offensive. As before, there are no results.
According to Mishavets, fighting continues in the border areas of the Sumy region along several directions. The forward units of the Russian group are trying to expand their incursion to a depth of up to 1.5 kilometers, but so far without success. At the same time, fighting is ongoing along the perimeter of this incursion north of Sumy. Despite several focused attempts by Russian troops to advance southward, they have not yet managed to reach their designated lines.
The Ukrainian command notes that the Russians do not have enough forces there for a significant breakthrough. Moreover, it is from here that the Russian General Staff also draws fighters to continue their offensive in the Donetsk region. This means that the Kremlin is not betting on success in the Sumy region.
Their task today is to create the conditions for establishing a buffer zone, a security zone on the Sumy front. And accordingly, we are saying that the Russians are trying to demonstrate this activity in order to distract our defense forces and possibly to force us to redeploy certain reserves, specifically to the North Slobozhansky direction.
Another telling story of the Russian offensive remains Kupiansk. The fake capture of the city, which has been ongoing since last year, has taken on new colors. The Ukrainian armed forces managed to clear out the units that had holed up in the local hospital, and this was finally acknowledged even in Russia itself. The outcry among Russian Z military bloggers is unbelievable.
Judging by reports coming from various sources, the last authentic call signs in Kupiansk have stopped being heard on the air. May the guys rest in peace. They held out bravely until the end. Another report from Russian media, Romanov Light. Kupiansk is almost completely occupied by the armed forces of Ukraine under the informational cover of the Russian Ministry of Defense. The Ukrainian side is clearing out the remaining northern sector. All the guys from the Central District Hospital have died. And this means that Kupiansk is now almost entirely under the control of Ukraine's defense forces.
Despite the pressure from Russian troops, the defense forces are not only managing to hold their ground, but are also advancing as reported by the deep state resource. And now, not just in the southern direction.
Ukraine's defense forces have liberated Ozerne and have entered Yampol in the Lyman direction. On the Alexandrovsk direction, during the ongoing counteroffensive, Ukraine's defense forces pushed the enemy south of Novonikolevka. So as we can see, Ukraine's defense forces are achieving successes along the entire length of the front line.
The most powerful and destructive drone attack on Russian territory. The largest oil terminal in the Baltic region near St. Petersburg is on fire. A drone hunt has been declared on the governor of the Belgorod region. Details in our report.
Russia has stopped sleeping peacefully.
Right in the city, guys. Quiet, quiet. Quiet. Do you hear that damn hum? Step away from the window quickly.
Petersburg is under attack. The Russian authorities reported that their air defense allegedly shot down about 60 UAVs in less than a day.
It's falling. Or what do you think? There's something else over there.
Residents of St. Petersburg heard explosions in Pavlovsk, Shushary, Pushkin, and the Moskovsky district of the city. The main airport of Petersburg-Pulkovo was closed for arrivals and departures. More than 300 flights were cancelled or delayed. A plane belonging to the airline Rossiya sent out a distress signal.
We got our money's worth, as they say.
A fuel tank was damaged after a drone strike at the port of Primorsk in the Leningrad region. Primorsk, it is the largest oil port in the Russian Federation on the Baltic Sea and a key export hub operated by Transneft. It is from here that the main volume of Urals crude oil was shipped, including via the Shadow Fleet, to circumvent sanctions. A strike on such a hub directly affects export logistics and foreign currency revenues for the Russian Federation. At the same time, communications were shut down in St. Petersburg and the region, but as we can see, that didn't help much. The new internet blockade is not making the locals happy at all. In just 1 hour, the number of complaints soared above 1,000. A Russian woman can't figure out what to do with her smartphone, which has turned into a brick.
Tell me, how long are we supposed to put up with this? What is this in my hands? An iPhone with Instagram, Telegram, WhatsApp, Google, and basically the internet in general? Or is it just a coaster for a wobbly table? And how long will mobile operators keep charging money for a service that doesn't exist? For the past 3 weeks, I haven't had internet at all. Never! And what's interesting is my mobile operator is Megafon. I pay 900 rubles a month. When I signed up for the plan, I said I didn't need to make any calls, I just needed internet. I understand that in today's Russia, 900 rubles is hardly any money, but I'd rather give it to homeless people for vodka. They'd at least say thank you. Recently, I went to a Megafon store to get an eSIM for my new phone. They offered me, Marina Alexandrovna, we have a special promotion just for you, with a discount. If you purchase an annual service plan for 7,500, you'll get more, like gigabytes, terabytes of internet. What internet? The one I don't have?
Complaints are coming in en masse. The authorities just shrug, explaining everything as security measures.
Look, the sun is shining outside. Instead of going out for a walk, for several days now, I've just been sitting and working non-stop. And then it turns out that we have new restrictions, that we have restrictions on the internet and everything else. I just sit and think, what's the point? Why make such sacrifices if everything will be shut down soon anyway? I honestly don't understand why everyone is silent. Everyone is hurting, everyone feels bad, but everyone stays silent. Why is everyone silent?
A surveillance camera captured a powerful explosion in Gachina, Leningrad region. A Russian air defense missile exploded here, just a kilometer away from the Vaiska military factory. This is a closed defense enterprise that historically branched off from the structures of the Gachina avant-garde plant. The enterprise specializes in the development and production of close combat weapons and explosive devices, as well as the creation of special equipment for the needs of the Russian Federation security forces. It is officially included in the Register of Organizations of Russia's Defense Industrial Complex. This is a legitimate target for the Ukrainian armed forces. Belgorod region, the village of Smorodina. Here, a drone attacked Belgorod Governor Gladkov, who had come to inspect the aftermath of yet another attack.
Come in, close the door. Close the door. He's coming in after us. Somewhere over there.
That's it, there you go.
It's a hit.
The Russian side presents the incident as an attempt to attack the governor himself. The Russian National Guard stated that the drone was destroyed by a special unit right in the air.
There it is.
Occupied Donetsk was also attacked by Ukrainian armed forces drones. A fire was seen near the communications hub of the data center in the area of the TV tower. Strange as it may sound, after that, Telegram started working in the city again. The defense forces report that in Donetsk, the site of the attack also included a Russian base located on the grounds of the former meat processing plant in the Kalininsky district. Several large fires were officially documented and recorded in the immediate aftermath following the impact of the strike. Separatist news showcased residential buildings located in the vicinity of the plant, where windows had been shattered.
Well, go ahead and film it.
Part of the occupied Luhansk region was also hit. The defense forces also struck fuel storage tanks in the occupied Stanitsia Luhanska. The occupiers were left without provisions. Ukrainian defenders continue to clear Donbas of Putin's army, halting their advance.
A revolution may begin in Russia. The Kremlin-friendly outlet Moskovsky Komsomolets has launched sharp criticism against Putin and predicted that the current protests in Russia could escalate into a large-scale revolution. Details in our report.
This question was asked on federal radio and the host couldn't give a clear answer to it.
Is it possible that in 50 or 100 years, our descendants, our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, will feel ashamed to remember this conflict, the special military operation?
Tell me, please, won't Ukrainian descendants feel ashamed? You say our descendants. What about Ukrainian ones?
Questions like these are coming up more and more often in Russian society, and not only there. Even openly pro-Kremlin mouthpieces are starting to criticize the so-called special military operation and Putin's policies. For example, Z-blogger Ilya Remeslo openly spoke out against the Kremlin's master and wrote a post on his Telegram channel, "Putin must resign and be tried as a war criminal."
You can see what's happening right now. There's complete chaos and disorder going on. I already see clear signs of the system's impending collapse. Precisely because Putin is afraid to surround himself with worthy rivals, with people who could compete with him. That's exactly why he will lose power. And this will most likely happen this year, in 2026.
After such criticism, and strictly within the law, the pro-Kremlin blogger Remeslo was, the very next day after his statements, sent to psychiatric hospital number 3 in St. Petersburg, which during the Soviet era was also used for punitive psychiatry.
The Remeslo rebellion is not some strange nonsense, but one of the symptoms of a split within Russia's enlightened elite, evidence of a maturing opposition and sabotage within their ranks. It fits into a series of similar recent events. Igor Aidman, sociologist.
One of the most widely circulated newspapers in Russia, which almost never criticized the authorities, published an article over the weekend with the striking headline, "Russia is being rocked by banned pamphlets, the fight against reality in this week's news." The publication criticizes recent events in the country, the slaughter of livestock, the lack of honest and open communication with the authorities, and the blocking of mobile internet.
Unfortunately, the people are not the right ones. Not only among the domestic liberal intelligentsia, but some representatives of the government have about the same attitude toward us. By some miracle on February 24th, 2022, the authorities nevertheless decided that the people were the right ones, that they could really rely on them, entrust the country to them, and we even believe that phrase about being in the same boat. But the point of unity has been passed.
The author of the article believes that the system is so unbalanced that one part of it no longer understands what the other is doing.
Something is happening in the Z community. In recent weeks, a wide variety of war correspondents and Z bloggers have been posting more and more uncharacteristic posts. They are calling for an end to the war, criticizing the authorities, and saying that everything is heading toward a revolution or a coup d'etat. Of course, this doesn't look as vivid and rapid as with Ilya Remeslo, who stirred up the information space quite a bit. However, the behavior of an entire group of people loyal to the authorities is a more telling story. That draws attention.
The Kremlin does not explain the reasons for its actions. The main example is the slaughter of livestock in the Novosibirsk region.
At the very top, the situation was reported as a fight against the spread of a dangerous infection, carried out in accordance with regulatory documents. But the situation on the ground is very different from that report and looks much more like someone is covering up their own mistakes.
The same goes for the example of internet blocking. But Moscow's economy loses 1 billion rubles every day because of it. That's 3% of all revenue. Gypsy cab drivers have appeared on the streets and businesses have started installing landline phones. Online businesses are simply dying. No one explains anything to anyone, they just keep tightening the screws. The number of incomprehensible bans per capita has already gone through the roof.
Dissatisfaction with what's happening goes far beyond the small and modest Z channels. Conversations about a dead end in the war, about authorities who couldn't care less about anyone, and about how it's time to stop the bloody meat grinder before it's too late are becoming mainstream.
All these bans resemble a trend toward destabilization, in line with the banned in Russia pamphlets on how to conduct so-called color revolutions.
What do you think about the latest events? Share your opinion in the comments, like the video and subscribe to stay informed about the main headlines. See you soon!